G'day, legends, and welcome to the Pot Noodle by Celtic Down Under. I'm your host, Jared, and joining me tonight is Shane. How you going, Shane?
Yeah, good, mate. Sans yesterday's result. Really good. Had a good weekend, a football-filled weekend as per usual. Got out to see the Melbourne Victory women's team play out in Bundoora and was treated to a 5-3 goal fest. Really enjoyable, and the Victory's women's team doing well once again. So go the girls. Love my women's footy.
Fair enough. That's I haven't been out to watch the women at all this season in the A-League. Only been out to see Victory play once, and we stunk it up that game too. So good fun. But what I wanted to do before we get into the the main part, because everyone's going to want to talk about the Hearts game. Let's be honest, that's what we're all here for. I want to just do a little trip down memory lane. I think it was end of August 2019, I started the Celtic Down Under podcast, and it's been building along slowly, growing. And over the last couple of years, it's just, grown massively. It's just finally just exploded in terms of viewers, subscribers to the YouTube channel, to the podcast and everything. So I just wanted to touch on that and just thank every single person who has been involved in the show, everyone who has been on as a guest, has been in to watch the show or listen to the podcast, because this is actually episode 300 for the podcast. So I was quite shocked when I saw that. I was like, the average podcast doesn't last 7 episodes, and we're at number 300 tonight. So I'm absolutely buzzing. I'm wrapped for that. So if only John Beaton didn't stitch us up, it'd be an even better pod. We'd be in a better mood for it. So anyway, just thanks everyone for that. I just wanted to start off the top with that. I also want to give a special shout out on that to my wife for all her support, everything podcast related. And as we joke, being a podcast widow every Monday and Thursday when I'm on the show. So appreciate that as well. But yeah, we'll just start off with the usual chit chat about the game. So Hearts 2, Celtic 0. It's a bit of a it's inside the first 5 minutes. I can't say what I really want to say. Bit of a nightmare of a show. There you go. It's the nicest, cleanest way to say it. Starting lineup: Joe Hart in goals, Greg Taylor, Liam Scales, Carter Vickers, and Alistair Johnson at the back. So there's no real surprises there. With Calmac being out injured, it was going to be who's coming into the midfield alongside Awada and O'Reilly. So it was Bernardo came in, and then up front was Ida with Yang and Maeda outside of him. So, Shane, what was your thoughts when you saw that starting lineup?
Yeah, no, really positive and really confident. Obviously Calmac, we've talked ad nauseum on the pod about him fronting up for Celtic week in, week out for many seasons now. Unfortunately, obviously, he's taken a bit of a knock, needs a bit of a break. But I thought, Bernardo was a very good replacement to come in for him. We're obviously remember back to just before Christmas, really enjoying the midfield three of Calmac, O'Reilly, and Bernardo, and particularly that duo, sort of in the eights of O'Reilly and Bernardo. So I was happy to see him back in the starting lineup. Was a little bit concerned about some on-field leadership. I know Carter Vickers is a great player and leads by example, but whenever Calmac's out of the side, I do get a little bit concerned, particularly that middle and front third without his leadership. So that was my only sort of worry. But apart from that, it looked like a strong lineup. We'd obviously had a great win midweek. Went in pretty confident.
Yeah, same here, Shane. When I saw the lineup, I'm like, yeah, that's pretty much about as strong as I expect. And then you look at our bench and you got Kyogo. And this is where it got a little interesting for me. So Kyogo on the bench, Kelly, Lagerbelkia was back into the squad, Palmer, Kuhn, Home was back into the squad, Bain, Ralston, Welsh. So we had plenty of options on the bench there. But the one thing I felt we were missing going into it was we always know at Tynecastle it's going to be it's a narrower field. So it's one where you need to have that impact off the bench, because our wide players, it's hard for them to get into the game usually. And that's something I found a little odd. We'll just have a bit of a general chat about the first half. But that's something I found odd. Was I thought going in, the wide players are going to struggle. So this is an opportunity for Kyogo to potentially come in, or if we wanted to change our shape a little bit later on, if need be, if we get overloaded in the midfield and keep the ball and get two strikers in together. And yeah, the guys on the bench like Palmer and Kun that didn't even take the pitch during the game. We made two subs for the game, and it was Kelly and Kyogo coming off the bench. And it's like you've spent what is it, 6.5, 7 million on Palmer and Kun. You've spent about 2 million on home. So what's that? Brings up to 9 million. All spent this season. And then Lagerbelke was what, 4 million, 3.5, 4 million. So all up, you're looking at about 13.5 million pound of players bought this season who were on the bench that didn't even take the field.
Mm.
So to me, it was like, yes, we've got the squad depth, but where's that word Brendan keeps using, the quality? I think we're missing it a bit here. The one that shocked me was O wasn't even in the squad. Yesterday was the sort of game where at one point I'm thinking in the second half, actually late on after the red card, I'm sitting there going, I actually wouldn't mind seeing Ida and O together up front, chuck the two big bruisers there as an outball if need be. And yeah, we couldn't even bring it. Then I went and looked at it and thought, it's not even in the match day squad. Lovely. So it was a bit of an interesting one, that game, all things considered. Plenty of things where the referees, which we're going to touch on later on, so we'll try not to go too hard on it early on that, but it was just one of those ones for me where I was looking at going, what I thought. And my wife was going to bed before the game. It was 11 p.m. over here in Melbourne last night for kickoff. And I'm like sitting here and I'm like, I have an interesting feeling about tonight's game. I'm like, I don't know what it is, but I want to stay up and watch it. And that was what I said to her. Like, I've been a couple of games recently. I've been like, nah, I'll just social media blackout, go to bed, wake up, watch the game. I thought, no, I'm staying up for this one. And I had a feeling about it. Not what I thought though. So yeah, it
Mm.
wasn't ideal. Got anything just in general you want to chat about the first half, Shane, before we get into the certain touch points that I've mentioned off air? But anything else?
Well, I was definitely keen to stay up and watch the game as well. As you said, 11 p.m. kickoff here. It's been scarce for us to have anything earlier than a midnight kickoff or later. So anytime we get a pre-midnight kickoff, I'm keen to see if I can stay up and watch it. I did have to start work pretty early this morning, so I was always a little bit touch and go if I was going to see the end. I did. Not sure I should have in the end, but that's a different story or a conversation for another day. I went into this thinking it was a little bit of a catalyst. We'd obviously had that tremendous result midweek, but this was going to tell us more about where we were at, right? This game was going to really identify whether we had actually turned a corner and we're actually playing better, or whether the midweek result against Dundee was a flash in the pan. And unfortunately, because of what happened, we'll touch on the ref's performance later, I'm left here with still those same questions. I don't have them answered. I'm still waiting to know whether we've truly turned a corner or not, because I don't simply think you can judge it on this game. There were too many factors that contributed to it going away from us and us having to play very differently to the way we usually do. So, look, in terms of the first half in general, we always know when we go to Tynecastle, they're going to come out at us. They're going to make it difficult, and they did. They're a decent team this year. I'll give them credit where it's due. I think they're only 13 points off us now in third. They've actually done pretty well after a shaky start. So, and they do have a couple of decent players in their lineup. A couple of which are Australian, which I'll comment on later.
Four Australians in their squad.
Four in the squad, two in the starting 11, and Callum Neuenhoff played a fantastic game. I'll give him a shout out now. I do like Callum Neuenhoff, and he was tremendous to our detriment. But I thought for that opening 10 to 15 minutes, it was really a bit of a game where neither team really got a foothold in. It was sort of up and back a little bit, both teams feeling each other out. We didn't really get into all kind of rhythm. And then I'm sure you want to touch on the specifics, but then it all kicked off around the quarter 15-minute mark, really quarter of the hour mark.
Yeah, the funny thing, and I say funny just being a little silly about it, but the funny thing was at halftime, I can't remember if I put this in the group chat or not, in our group chat or another one, but I was like, we're still a chance here. Like, I actually thought we were the better team in the first half. Even though we're down a man, I thought we were playing the better football. We were looking the more direct. We were actually getting more shots. which we took. When you look at the stats, we had more shots on goal, we had more possession, all this sort of stuff that even though we were playing a man down, we still had all that. But I'm looking at it going, oh, we're the better team. There's just a whole bunch of things and situations and, twists and turns and snakes and ladders is probably the nicest way I can sum up that first half. You'll understand why when John Beaton's your VAR ref and someone's a snake, but the whole snakes and ladders side of it where it was just like we're doing well and we're getting somewhere and then a decision goes against us and then we just drop our bundle for a couple of minutes and then then we push up and we're man down, so we're trying to cover for someone, then it gets us slightly out of position on the counter. And things like that. It was one of those games where I still thought at halftime we were the better team. Even at the
Yeah.
end of the game, it's gonna sound weird, but at the end of the game, I thought on full balance of it, player for player, I thought we were the better team. And that's good. I don't wanna sound deluded, but I actually think they took their chances. We both had 6 shots on goal. They took their chances, they converted their penalty, we missed ours. So, it's one of those things, we both had an offside goal chalked off, which we'll go through it all and a couple other things, but all things considered, they took their chances, we didn't. So, this whole talk, and we'll talk about the, Brendan's reactions after and that a little later, is I don't wanna be making excuses. It was one of those games where a certain mob across town dropped points on the Saturday, and we're all going into it getting all giddy, going, "Here, if we win this, we're back on top, blah, blah, blah," and then 15 minutes in, "Robert, this one's for you." Shit turned upside down. He said 7 minutes in, "Fill the swear tin," so I'll throw one in there for you, Robert. But, yeah, before we go through each of the individual things that happened, Shane, I'm just gonna bring up some of the comments here. So Andrew Galea, supporting my local Celtic podcast. Appreciate that, mate. Smell the glove. Naivety lost it for us yesterday. It's pretty much what I just was saying there as well. Like they took their chances, we didn't. Don't know how you did it, Andrew. Stayed up till the end, then up again at 4:30.
That's
I
brutal,
was,
Andrew.
it's pretty crazy. Andrew's also saying we've been playing poorly with Kelmac. That's not why we played the way we did.
No,
100%.
very
We all
fair
know.
comment.
We all know the reason we played the way we did. Our shape was out of whack because we were reduced unfairly with a dodgy red card. So yeah, it was I mentioned about putting O up there with Ida and Robert saying O is a waste of space. Each to their own. Andrew saying, I want to hear the audio between the on-field ref and Cheat and Beaton. I love that one. Love a good bit of alliteration there. Come on now, let's not be asking for that. Although the Huns did get it released, didn't they? When they said for it in the last derby. So yeah, let's get that. Yang was never a red. We keep turning corners this season and ending up back in Sheffield. Man, it was a back to the wall performance. It wasn't a shit performance by any means. Robert was
Yeah.
waiting for the 5-minute mark as well. So that's pretty much what I was just saying. Like I thought we were the better team, all things considered. We just certain situations screwed us over. So
Mm.
we'll just get into the actual few things that happened during the game. So we'll start off with the first main incident or whatever that happened in the first half. So Yang wins the penalty and then Ida missed it. So for me, Shane, I'm looking at that. If I was a Hearts fan, first of all, I'd be very disgusted with myself. I'd probably need to go take 7 or 8 showers. But beside that, if I was a Hearts fan, I would be upset that that penalty was called. I thought it was soft. I'm watching it going, he's just cut across him. There's a clip there. If that was outside the box, they probably wouldn't have even given the free kick because it's in the box. They had to. So I thought that was a really soft penalty, but you take what you can get, I suppose. And then Ito with his shot down the middle, if you're going to take a penalty and you put it down the middle, you've got to lift it off the ground a little bit because if the keeper drags his foot like he did, which is he's pushing off, it's in the way. It's basics, which is what Brendan said in the presser as well after. But what was your thoughts on the penalty and the shot by Ito there, Shane?
I thought it was a pen. When I looked at it in real time, I was a bit uncertain, But then when I looked at the replay, I was happy with that. I thought he made a good darting run. He cuts across him. There's a clip. I'm going to disagree. I reckon that is a foul if that's given outside the box or if that's happens outside the box. So I was pretty satisfied it was a pen and thought Yang did a really good job to cut across Cochrane and win it. So I didn't have any qualms with that. I didn't think we were lucky by any stretch of the imagination. I thought it was deserved.
I'll clarify something they're saying where I said it wouldn't have been a free kick outside the box. What I'm meaning is with the way Don Robertson was calling things before it. There was guys clattering into each other everywhere. Sorry, that's what I meant. Like there was things with more contact down the other end in the middle of the park and not getting a call, and then you go into the box and there's a micro tiny bit of contact compared to what was whistled, like completely ignored. Play on to both teams like 2 minutes earlier. Yet that's a whistle blown and a penalty. That's what I meant. Sorry, should have clarified it.
No, it's okay. And then ironically, after that decision, he went back to being pretty much allowing everything to go between the boxes again, unfortunately. So very inconsistent in that regard. When Eder steps up, he's obviously been in good penalty form, so I was pretty confident. I'd have to double check. I reckon he scuffs it. I'm pretty sure he kicks it into the ground or scuffs it somehow, and that's why he doesn't lift it. It's a poor penalty. It's really poor. It allows Clark to be able to get his feet to it. Clark's committed to the dive, but it's so poor that he's able to stick a foot out. And you could I don't like to look at moments, but you can't help but look at it as a sliding doors moment. Game's in the balance at that point. We go 1-0 up. We're away from home. They're going to start feeling that pressure again. I feel like this whole game is changed on that one moment. And then what was to come, he obviously wasn't to know, that Yang was going to get sent probably a minute later, right? But it's just turned out to be a really sliding doors moment and really poor pen. There's not really much more that you can say. Hopefully when he gets another opportunity, he actually delivers and actually lifts it a little bit.
Shane, if I'd have known you were going to say sliding doors so many times in that little answer there, I would have made the thumbnail for the episode a picture of Gwyneth Paltrow or something's movie she did in 1998. Would have done that and then had a picture of like her up the top. Instead of her, it would have been like John Beaton here and Don Robertson in the other picture. Would have had something absolutely ready to go. If I had a tweak to that earlier, damn it, missed the opportunity.
Sliding doors moment, mate.
I agree with what you're saying, though. It was one of those ones where I reckon if we had scored that penalty, then their fans would have started turning on because we were all over. We were the better team at that point. And as I said, you don't normally have much width going on at Tynecastle. And what happened? We were actually getting the business done outside of them on the wings. So it was, it was a bit of an interesting one there. That's why once we got to the next incident, which was like 3 minutes later after the missed penalty, where Yang got his red card and the VAR re-refereed the game and got involved and everything. It was, personally for me, I saw it and I straight away go, yeah, he's off. Not that I thought it should have been a red card, but knowing how the game is being called now, particularly when VAR is involved, and all it takes is one still image of the guy's foot here just touching him in the face or even near it, and it's like, yep, he'll be off. So the way the game's called now, even though his eyes were on the ball, he played at the ball and he barely even touched him. As soon as I saw that, I'm like, yeah, he's off. That's what my gut feel. Then I saw the yellow and I'm like, there's no way this is going to be a yellow. It's going to be upgraded. So I was expecting the worst on that. Even though personally I thought it should have been a yellow, I expected it to be a red all the way. So especially when it's us playing away from home at the Diet Hun Stadium and all that sort of stuff. So yeah, I don't really have many complaints on that. I thought it should have been a yellow, but it was always going to be a red the way the game's called now. So I wasn't overly shocked by that. What are your thoughts on that?
No, you pretty much nailed exactly what I was thinking when I saw it in real time. I thought he's in trouble here. I thought he's going to get sent for this. That was my immediate reaction to the incident. And then I saw the yellow come out and I momentarily forgot VAR existed. And I thought, well, we've got away with that one. And then the pause. And I was like, oh, shit.
Then
Okay.
then you hear the commentator say, "Oh, and John Beaton on VAR's looking at it," and as soon as that happened, I was just like I had my phone in the hand getting ready to put something in the group chat, and I was just like, phone goes down. I'm like, "There's no point." I was gonna say, "We got
He's
away with one."
he's very unlucky because there's absolutely no malice in it, and he's only got eyes for the ball. He has no intention to do what he ended up doing, which was to lift his foot that high and inadvertently clip Cochrane. I think was it Cochrane that copped the foot
Yeah,
to the face? Yeah.
he tucked his head in.
Geez, he was out and about, that's for sure. He gave the pen away and then he runs into Young's foot.
It gets better, and then he absolutely clatters us. I think they actually did a stat. By the time he got his yellow card in the 85th or 86th minute or something like that, it was his 8th foul of the second half.
Yeah, it was borderline ridiculous. He should have been in the book a lot earlier. But I was like you, as soon as it was going upstairs, I thought he was lucky initially to come away with the yellow. I think it's a one that you can understand the frustration from the player on our side, that he's getting sent for something that really you could argue was reckless, but you could also argue that maybe Cochrane inadvertently caused it. I can see why he was sent. So I'm like you. I'm not going to die on this hill of arguing it because I think if the jerseys were reversed and we were on the receiving end of that, I'd be looking at that going, yeah, that's probably a red. So
And
in fairness, I get it, but I'm like I'm going to let that one slide. I don't have many major qualms with it.
you go back to Davey Turnbull last season too, same sort of deal. He got red carded for it
Yeah.
as well. So there's consistency across the board on that front too, unless you're, playing in a Rangers jersey. But yeah, we had this. He said, "Smell the glove," was Yang can't put his boot up that high, asking cheating Beaton to red him. Yep, 100%. Robert saying, "I don't like Rogers, but we're pleased he called out Beaton and his mates." Yep, again. Smell the glove, a soft penalty. Yang was stupid. Hart's penalty's a joke. Lucky with Hart's offside goal. Game ref by VAR, 100%. Smell the glove saying, "We're missing a Liam rant today. I was hoping for it big time, I'll tell you what." And then we got a couple other comments here. So Dominic saying, "Thought we would have subbed Bernardo for Palmer to keep the width." Yeah, that wouldn't have surprised me either. The way we were lined up, but we sacrificed the wings knowing that Tynecastle's a pretty narrow field anyway. So I can understand that. But I thought Maeda looked basically like a caged lion when you were playing him in the left wing in midfield, playing a 4-4-1 or whatever it was. It just didn't quite seem right. When it was the 4-3-2, he seemed a bit more up and about. But yeah, smell the glove, yeah, saying Palmer won't track back. Exactly. And Robert Gibson, you summed it up perfect here. Beaton, rumor has it Beaton got a boner when he saw the still image. That's why it took so long. He knocked everything off his desk, mate. So yeah, well, so moving on, like Ida then scores a goal that was ruled out for offside. The only issue I had with that is why didn't they flag it earlier? It was so friggin' obvious. He was
Yeah.
like 2 steps offside. So the fact that he goes offside, then he squares it up, it gets past, then it goes back to him and all this sort of stuff. I'm just looking at that going, there was so much more football played after that if a player had have clattered someone and someone got injured, that's the thing that annoys me with the linesmen keeping their flags down. Like you run the risk of someone copping an injury or something like that trying to score when they shouldn't even that play on shouldn't be happening. So if it's that obvious, just put your flag up and get on with it.
Mhm.
Then we had Awada conceding a penalty. My God. Where do we start here? Other than the fact that, okay, basic, simple, common sense doesn't exist, obviously. Scottish football and all. But the fact is, Awada jumps eyes on the ball. His teammate also jumps, bumps into him. The ball goes off someone's head or arm or whatever, down onto his arm, which is facing away from his body, away from the goal, not even moving, it's just there. And somehow that is still down and given as a penalty. How? Like, I know it's in an unnatural position, but you think for a second, if you jump up, your arms are going to be out. Your arms are going to be up and down. But then when you get bumped within the air, you kind of got to put your arms out to, balance yourself. It's called proprioception is the actual term. if you really want to get into the biomechanical side of it. Something we used to have to do playing basketball training, which was you had to jump, turn, and land and do all this sort of stuff back in the day to get really good at that so you don't lose your balance. At his actual biomechanics, what he was doing was spot on for what happened. And the fact of the matter is that the ref would actually just go, nothing to play. Then get the message from Beaton, go over and look at it, and then agree with him. There's so much wrong in that whole build up to there that is ridiculous and makes me think the game's gone. The game's gone mad. Like, when I saw that straight away, I was like, nah, the fix is in. Beaton's had his way here. He was looking for any and every single possible way to stitch us up after his team lost the day before. Shane, what was your take on that? Because I could just rage and ramble. I could give them a Liam rant and not even Liam if they want.
VAR should never get involved there. There's no reason for VAR to step in and look at that in any capacity. You obviously said his arms in an unnatural position, but he's obviously jumped up. He's contesting a header, right? I would argue it's in a perfectly acceptable position for that action. You can't just spawn like a salmon and win a header. Thinking the silly salmon that we were talking about last week. You can't really do the silly salmon and win the header and keep your arms by your side. It's simply not possible. So, he hasn't leant into the ball with his arm. He hasn't gone towards the ball with his arm. He hasn't made himself unnaturally bigger.
He hasn't done a Connor Goldson and put his hand up to try and catch the ball and get away with it.
He hasn't done anything that's unreasonable. So there's no remit, in my opinion, for VAR to step in there. It's perfectly fine to ignore that and let that go and leave the on-field decision as is. You can't help but feel there's something a bit greater at play with that decision getting overturned. And perfect time to bring up that comment, because it was simply inexcusable for that to be flagged as a penalty. I can't in any good conscience look at that and go, I can see why that was given. I can't. I really cannot. From a common sense point of view, there was no common sense applied to that. But VAR obviously calls Don Robertson over. He looks at the footage. He showed a couple of times, then showed the still. The key facet here to remember is VAR, and I'm not naive. I'm sure there's a pretty robust conversation coming down from VAR to Don's ear, telling him exactly what they think the decision should be. It's still Don's final call to make. Now, Don has to go, yeah, okay, I'm going to change it. Or Don can turn around and go, I'm not going to change that. I'm happy with my on-field decision. So he still has to be complicit in overturning it as well, which he was. You could tee off about this for a long time. It was a bullshit decision. It was absolute robbery. And it should never have happened. And they profited from it. And it was, in all seriousness, dead set, it was fucking ridiculous. It really was.
So I'm going to grab that and I'm going to see if you can figure out where this has come from, Shane. I'm going to use a quote from another NBA podcast for you. It's a sham. It's a mockery. It's a schmockery. Who would have said that on their podcast talking about bad refereeing decisions?
Nah, you've lost me. I've lost.
That's a Sir Charles Barkley comment. He's talking about something on a podcast one time, and he goes, that decision is a sham. They're making a mockery of the rules. That's it. It's a schmockery. So, best way to sum it up.
For someone who's caught a fair bit of Charles on his NBA show, that's one of the few things you can actually probably quote Charles on and actually use elsewhere, I reckon. Definitely don't talk about San Antonio, that's for sure.
Yeah, 100%. But, yeah, I'm just looking at it going, with that whole situation, what I hate is they go to a stills. The game is something that flows. So the first one with the red card, they watch it and they slow it down by bit, by frame, by frame, by frame, and then they give a still at the moment. How about you watch the whole thing so you can get to see where the guy pushes his head forward, whatever. With that one, how about you watch it and see what actually happened instead of giving him the frame of Owada's facing this way, his hands out that way, and the ball hits it. How about you see how his body, he was facing our goals with his back to the goals he's defending, and then somehow when the contact happened, he's touching the sideway.
we know that obviously handball can be a little bit difficult to navigate as a referee, right? I understand, but I don't see that here. I don't see that at all. I don't see any ambiguity. I see that as completely incidental contact that had no bearing on what happened next. And VAR had no remit to step in there. Sure, look at the footage, see if you've missed something, but no remit to step in and say, I think you've missed something. That should have been let go. It took way too long. And this is the other thing. And we've talked ad nauseum about VAR and VAR, whatever you want to call it. We've talked ad nauseum in the past about the fact it is meant to be for clear and obvious. There's nothing clear and obvious that needs to be overturned there. But if you take 3 minutes and repeated looking at footage to determine if something needs to be overturned, I hate to break it to you, it ain't fucking clear and obvious. It's not a clear and obvious thing to be overturned if you're having to literally skip through frame by frame of footage and pause it on a still and look at it from multiple angles and take 3 minutes before you even call someone over to look at it. It ain't clear and obvious, bud. You've got no remit to step in here, but they did.
And that's what I was just about to say as well there. So, and in the comments, Andrew Galee's got it as well. The key thing for VAR is it clear and obvious error? And Andrew's saying they should only be allowed to watch replays at normal speed. It's supposed to find clear and obvious errors. Robert's saying, I held a ref's ticket for many years and there's no common sense anymore. And then Andrew's saying, it's not obvious if you need slow motion, which is just what you're saying there, Shane. 100%. So, yeah, it's just all over. It's pretty frustrating. And Andrew's last thing on that whole thing was the jump by Johnson was reckless. I actually think he was doing his job. I think Awada got suckered a little bit deeper than he probably should have been. Johnson was in the right area on the field. It was just unfortunate, all things considered. And then we get to Shanklin scores a goal on the counter. That's what I was saying early on about you get a little out of position because you're pushing forward, you're dominating, and then you get hit on the counter. It was offside. The only thing that made it look as closer than it was that Scales had his arm out, getting ready to put up to say, hey, like call it offside. That's what made it look closer than it actually was.
Mm.
So, yeah, I just thought, all things considered, that was an interesting one. On their penalty, I love the fact that Joe Hart was basically mouthing off, telling Shanklin that he's a hack and all this for, not taking the penalty because he's missed a few. So it was good to see a little bit of lip going there. It was good fun. And hail Michael Ross, my fellow disgruntled Tim. Like, I'm not going to even say I'm overly disgruntled with the result. As I said, we started 2 points behind at the weekend. We're still 2 points behind, so that's still all there. But we'll talk on that later, Shane. But yeah, we'll just talk. We can go into player focus, but normally we would. But I don't see a point doing that, all things considered, because what can we really take from the game? You can't really take much.
No.
When you get a guy red carded, the whole rhythm of the game is thrown off. The only two subs are Kyogo comes on, and you bring on young kid Kelly again off the bench. I mentioned about all the other guys on the bench, £13.5 million worth of players that we just bought this summer just gone, and none of them took the field. So there's not really much I can talk on the player focus other than it was just a little bit of a nightmare, all things considered.
Yeah, I'm happy to not go into the player focus. I think it's, as you said, circumstances led it to sort of be a match where we obviously had to change the way we'd normally play and had to do things a lot differently than we normally would. What I am going to do is take the opportunity to give a bit of credit to Brendan, actually. And I've been pretty staunch in criticism of him throughout the season, but I thought he still did a good job of keeping the players up and about. We went down to 10 earlier in the season at the Spaghetti Had, and we managed to pull out, I think, either a 3-0 or 3-1 win there and played really well despite being down to 10. I don't think I'd go as far as yourself and say that we were the better team necessarily, but I don't think we were by any means I thought it was relatively even. I don't think we were by any means the worst team. I do agree that they took their chances and we didn't. But I thought even in the second half, And I went in at halftime similar to yourself, 1-0 down. I thought we're absolutely still a good chance to take something from this. Even all 3 points, I still had a little bit of confidence. And I thought the move of Bernardo off for Kyogo was absolutely the right one as well. You know, it was quite clear that we were going to have to scrap. We're going to get some half chances. We're going to need to convert them. You want to get your best striker on. You want to get your best players up front on to try and deliver on that. And so I liked the move of Kyogo, and I thought that he was actually quite central to a lot of the half opportunities we did have, him and O'Reilly in particular. I thought second half were doing a good job of trying to actually make something happen. So, you know, I think there was a little bit of criticism from Brendan for maybe bringing Kyogo on so early. I disagree. I thought it was the right move, and I thought he did a good job of trying to get the players going and still keeping them up and knocking the ball around pretty well despite the pressure. I thought early in that second half, the Hearts actually looked in two minds. They didn't know whether to go for the second or to kind of sit back and contain a little bit. And that's why I still had a lot of confidence up until the second goal. At that point, I knew we weren't getting anything from the game when that goes in. It was really disappointing. It felt like a bit of a sucker punch. At that point, I thought we were actually setting ourselves up pretty well. We had a couple of moments where we looked positive, a couple of little openings that just didn't fall our way. And then obviously, you know, there's a little bit of a lucky break for Neuenhoff, who's able to flick the ball back to Shanklin. But, you know, he's a quality finisher and he's got way too much space. You know, he should be closed down. He shouldn't have that much space. If you actually look at the play, regardless of whether Neuenhoff slips or not, I think he's always knocking that back to Shanklin. And it's frustrating to me that he's got so much space. And he buries it. And at that point, I knew we weren't getting anything from the match, unfortunately.
Yeah, we didn't track the runners. That's all it was in that one there. I'm going to bring up some comments here. So Mahesh is saying Celtic had enough momentum final 30 minutes to win. Rogers made tactical mistakes not getting Palmer on for his playmaking. O'Reilly was too deep in the second half. If O'Reilly plays high in the final third, Celtic win. Agree with probably about half of that, Mahesh. Peg leg, I agree with this. If we keep 11 players on the pitch, we win.
Yeah, I agree.
And that's the deciding factor above all else right now. We can talk about everything that's happened, went wrong in the game, but that's the thing. And Smell the Glove saying here, we missed the penalty. Young was naive with the high boot. Celtic aren't blameless.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. We aren't.
And then Robert Gibson, we know how much he loves Palmer. So Palmer is about as useful as a vegan at a barbecue. So what I wanted to we'll finish off talking about the game there, Shane, in particular. Rogers' post-match press conference comments about the refereeing and Beaton's involvement in re-refereeing decisions and stuff like that. What's your thoughts on that?
I thought his post-match presser was pretty good. I thought he was pretty calm. I thought he succinctly put why we as a club, so himself, the players, the fans, were frustrated or would be frustrated. I thought he gave a good account of himself, all things considered. And I've been pretty critical of some of his post-match pressers throughout the season. I thought he was really good. The key to it to me that he was really calm and succinct. He didn't come across as just teeing off for no reason. He very clearly thought about what he was going to say and articulated it very well. And I run the risk here of losing the people in the comments by what I'm going to say next. But the one part I didn't like about it, and I've got my right eye on the comments as I say this cautiously, I didn't like the fact he named John Beaton. I had no problem with him going in on the decisions and the VAR and the referees as general, but I didn't like the fact he named him. It lost a little bit of momentum for me with that. It came across as a little bit petty. Heat of the moment, I get it. I just think that was the wrong thing to do. I would have simply left it as VAR official. We're not naive. We know who he's talking about. There was just something about him naming him and only naming him instead of Don as well. I thought was a little bit pointed, and maybe that's a better way to describe it. It was very pointed, and that for some reason just didn't sit well with me. I had no problem with anything else except for that. I think the pointedness of it, that was something that just I bristled when I heard it. I was like, I wish you hadn't done that. I wish you'd just left it at VAR official.
So I'm gonna agree with the comment section here, Shane.
See, I'm already see the comments section. I knew I was going to
So
lose them. I'm
Peg
not
Leg
going to
is
win them
saying,
back either.
glad he mentioned Beaton by name and shame him. Fuck Beaton. I loved his calling him out. Time to name and shame. He was calling out what we were all thinking. Scottish Jason saying Brendan has blamed pitches, players, now ref VAR. Has he ever mentioned tactics? Now, here we go. Who's the snitch? Name and shame, no probs at all. Beaton has been at it for years. So, what I'm going to say on all of this, and my take is okay, I can understand what you're saying, Shane, about not calling him out by name. It did come across a little bit. Okay, how do I sum this up? Remember when Lenny was at Hibs and he had that blow up with Clancy this, Clancy that, Clancy this in his press conference. It came across a little bit that way, but at the same time, I'm I can understand why he did it, 100%. So it's one where I'm basically sitting on a fence, copping splinters on the top of it here, not sure which side of the fence I'm going to fall off on at the moment. But at the end of the day, yeah, it was he was shit ass, had to be called out, and as Michael Ross is saying, Beaton is a. I'll leave the rest for you guys. And Vinny saying Beaton can beat off. That's what he does all the time anyway. So yeah, for me, like I like the fact that he did it, but at the same time, it's one of those things that can kind of look a little cringy sometimes with the way it's done. But the one thing I can understand is he's trying to get this whole it's us against the world sort of battle stations drawn sort of thing, get everyone rallying around us, and you get that holy trinity of the fans, the club, the players, and everything going on. And this is going to be putting all of us in the trenches alongside the players and the team and everything, and just everyone's going to be up and about, ready to go because we all feel slighted here. But I'm just waiting now. The fact that he has put himself in the crosshairs, as Robert's saying here, by calling Beaton out by name, you can only imagine what's going to happen once the Refs Association gets involved, goes to the SFA. What sort of fine is going to be a fine? Is it going to be a touchline ban? Yang getting a straight red is going to be probably 3 games he'll be out for. How many of these games is Rogers going to be missing from the sideline as well? Because he's
Mm.
not going to get away with it. Let's be honest. They're going to fine him. The only one who can get away with it is Michael Beale or Steven Gerrard used to do this sort of thing and actually get away with it. When Lenny did that about Clancy back at Hibs, he copped it. I looked it up. He had a 3-game ban from it. So it is going to kick off and come back at us. So I like that he did it, but at the same time, this is why I'm saying I'm sitting on that fence because there's going to be shit happening here. Does that mean John Kennedy's going to be managing us for a few games?
Well, I mean, and this is actually just in the comments there. Smell the Gloves mentioned it. If this was Clements and he was saying Clancy this, Clancy that, I think that we'd look at it a little bit unfavorably. So, look, it just bristled me. That's all. I'm not saying he was necessarily wrong to do it, and it was definitely his place, but that was the only part where I thought wouldn't have done that. That's all. But you've got to take into account the heat of the moment. It's a passionate game. He's just witnessed this all from the touchline. He's gone there. It's a hostile environment. He and the team are probably copping pelters from the crowd. This is literally just post-match. You're obviously always not, and I thought he came across pretty clear thinking. You're obviously always not at that level of total calmness, are you? There's still that little bit of fire there. So I understand a little bit, obviously similar to yourself why I did it. I just bristled at it. That's all.
All right. So here's one for you, Shane. I was going to leave this for later on, but so with what's happened now, because as we got in the comments here, Pete saying, will our board be writing to the SFA about Beaton? No chance. So with that in mind, should John Beaton be allowed to referee or be involved in any refs, whether it's fourth official, actual ref, or VAR, any games involving Celtic or Rangers the rest of this season?
Well, I wouldn't even I wouldn't even go to that degree. I would even just go on a week by week. And I'm going to answer this by sitting on the fence a little bit. All refs should have their performance obviously reviewed in terms of what they did and the decisions they gave and qualify them. And I don't even just mean, to the public, but I mean obviously within house. And I know people are going to say I'm naive here. Don't worry, I get it. I'm just talking about what a protocol should be, right? And I would think and argue on the decisions that were made there that he shouldn't actually be part of anything for the next couple of weeks at the very least. But to answer your question, I'd have serious misgivings if he was given any form of refereeing responsibility in a Glasgow derby for the rest of the season. And I think if you've got that concern, you have to look at it and go, well, that's probably not suitable then. So I'm going to
So,
answer it pretty bluntly.
so off the back of that, I'm going to go into what my next thing I wanted to talk about here, Shane, was is it time for a referee register in Scottish football similar to what they have in England? So basically what I'm saying is like this way all referees will declare their family allegiances to whatever clubs their families support, they support growing up, all this sort of stuff, their hometowns, and they can't referee any of the games for those clubs or their local rivals. So if you grew up a Rangers fan, suddenly there's going to be a lot of Killy fans refereeing down from Ayrshire. Understand that, but it's going to be one of those ones where if you grew up a Rangers fan like Beaton, he's been seen out at their supporters clubs and that sort of stuff. You have to take that off the table and be like, look, we know that subconsciously there is some bias. So do you have to do something like that? They've got it in England. They've got it over here. If you've got the Sydney Derby going on in the A-League, they put a Melbourne ref or a Brisbane-based ref on that just for that reason. Is it time they do something like that in Scotland?
I think it's a good idea in theory, but I have serious misgivings about how well it's going to be navigated through. I think you're going to see a significant increase of Partick Thistle and Queen's Park fans, that's for sure.
It's not even that, Shane. It's also the fact that the Referees Association will go on strike again and we'll have to get foreign refs in. Let's be honest.
It's not exactly the worst thing in the world, though, is it?
No, not at all. So as Pete McGee's saying here, you think the refs are going to tell the truth about allegiances? Michael Ross is Beaton doesn't hide, he's a Hun. Interesting, Severo set the standard. We should harass the SFA and get the audio. Call for Beaton to be removed from our games. As you said, Scottish Jason saying the refs will just do a chick young and say they support St Mirren. There'll be no one to ref the Huns games. Almost every ref is a Hun or St Mirren fan for the paperwork. And then it can never be done up here. 100%. I'm just playing devil's advocate here. I knew the comment section would go off like this. So I'm like, this is going to be good for some interaction here just to get everyone else's opinions on it because, yeah, that's the way I'm feeling too.
It's a really tough call, though, to get back to your original question of, should a ref be banned from certain games? And I think, what I was trying to convey is that there should be a normal peer review process. And if you make some bad decisions, you probably shouldn't be reffing the next match or couple of matches whilst that's either assessed or, you do what you need to prove that you can be better at your decision making. And we had a referee in the A-League here recently who gave some pretty poor or made some pretty poor decisions. And I think he set out the next couple of weeks or something of that nature. Now, there's a little bit of accountability there on, well, hang on a sec. If you can't really justify what you gave and don't accept that you've given the wrong decision, you probably need to have a little bit of a stint where you, I guess, recalibrate. And I'm talking really generally, not trying to talk on biases here and so forth, just in a real general scope here. I do think it gets a little bit tricky when you start going, well, you can't ref this game and you can't ref that game. It does open up a little bit of can of worms, even though I don't necessarily disagree with the situation. Yeah, it's a tough one. But on a personal level, as I said before, I'd have just on that performance, I'd have some real misgivings if he was to be a referee in any of our games coming up, to be honest, irrespective of whether it's a Glasgow derby or not.
So all I'm going to say on that, Shane, is for Scottish football in particular, the sooner, if you're going to have this issue, it's going to have to open up into a bigger pool of referees within the league, right? Currently, and for years it has been, the Lanarkshire Referees Association was the predominant guys doing all the refs, providing all the refs. So a lot of those guys are all going for the same clubs. You're gonna have to open it up. It'll be nice to get some refs from the Dundee Refs Association or Aberdeen, or get someone from the Highlands, the Highland League refs. If there's anyone up there is any good enough, get them down there, get them in the championship, let them give them some games and start to bring through. Expand your ref space.
Mm.
That's so it actually is gonna have not if you did that, yeah, it would suck at massive amounts of cock at the moment, but long term, long term, what's it gonna do? It's gonna actually increase and improve the standard of refereeing, you would hope. So, yeah, it's an interesting one, but we'll see how that goes. Andrew, yeah, right. Those referees. Oh, jeez. No chance, mate. No chance. You
It's a
jeez.
lovely thought, Andrew. It really is.
Yep. So, what we'll do is we'll crack on. So, I touched on this earlier. Rangers also lost. We also lost. So it's the first time I think since was it 2018 or something like that that both of us lost in the same weekend. So with two Glasgow derbies still to play, how confident are you, Shane, that we can still win the league? For me, I'm not worried or scared by the level of performance coming out of Ibrox recently. I think it's all still there to be played for, and we can still win this league. As Liam keeps saying, 9 games to go, win 8, draw 1, we win the league. What's your thoughts?
It's all in our control. I'm not concerned by what they're doing or how they're playing. I'm really just focused on what we're doing and whether we're able to reach the level that we should be playing at. And there's still a few question marks there, but it's all in our control. If we can actually play to our abilities and to the quality that this squad does have, we can win this league and we'll win this league. I've said this a couple of times and it might be a little bit confusing, but I don't think they can win the league if they don't beat us in the upcoming Glasgow derbies. They have to take, and I don't mean from a points perspective, but if they lose to us in both games, I can't see them winning the league. And I'm not even talking about mathematically here. I'm talking about from a mental side of things. I think for them to actually go and win the league, they have to beat us at least once. And if they can't get a positive result against us, I can't see them having the mettle to win the league. So that's why I'm not really too concerned by them necessarily in what they're doing. I think it's all on us. And yeah, I'm still confident we can turn this around. I was hoping that we would have done so yesterday. Obviously, we've touched on that. Wasn't to be. But I'm hoping we've got that regeneration in the squad now and we've recalibrated to the point where we found that team and that squad that can actually put on those performances that we saw midweek against Dundee and in that second half against Motherwell, who obviously, shown themselves to be a pretty decent opposition, right? So that 3-1 win at Fir Park looks even a little bit shinier than it did last week.
On the flip side of that comment, though, all the blue noses just trolling on all the on Twitter and everything and on the Facebook pages and that will say, yeah, but Rangers beat Hearts 6-0 not long ago, so and they'll just do the same thing. I think you can't take anything from our game on the weekend in particular, so it's all a load of crap. But we'll roll on. So next topic, Leo Labata looks set to move to Charlotte FC in the MLS for £8 million. All right, good riddance. See you later. Like, it's probably the best thing for him personally, and we're getting a bit of cash. 8 million is probably not what I would have hoped to get from him. Would have at least 15, 20 million for him if he was up and about. But I hope we get a nice chunk of change and a sell on as well on that. So the worst thing for him is he's got to go become a teammate of Scott Arfield now. So yeah, good luck with that.
That's it's not worth it, Leo. Trust me. Look, it's a delicate situation. What's happening there, and I feel, look, I'm going to be honest with you. I feel for him a little bit, right? And I think it was important that he probably did leave and move on and find somewhere else within reason. It wasn't a case of just tearing up the contract and off you go. I think it still had to be something that we got a little bit of remuneration for, all things considered. But oh, look, it's a really delicate situation. He's obviously not feeling comfortable with everything that's going on. So, I don't wish him any ill will. I hope he goes over there and prospers and does well. And yeah, it's just one of those things. I think it's best for all parties that he's moved on. And the only frustrating thing is he's a quality winger, and we could have sold him for a lot more if circumstances were different. But they're not. And I think this is the best outcome right now for both parties, really.
I've spent plenty of time in Charlotte over the years. Good, best part of a month here and there. So really nice city, nice place. People are friendly as. And one thing that he will find over there as well is that there is a big Israeli population out in the western area of Charlotte. So as long as he doesn't go to the south side of Charlotte, he shouldn't get shot at or anything. But out west, he'll be fine. Where a lot of the Israeli people and that live. So yeah, he should do well over there, and should be a good move for him as well. But anyway, we're going to pretty much start wrapping the pod up. We've got one last thing I want to mention quickly, and we're not going to dive into it because it's something we'll look at more on the international break. So I'm just going to go here on the 15th of February. On the Thursday sesh, we were talking about Mark Lawwell's resignation rumors, and McCrazy in the comments on Twitter responded, "Don't waste our time talking about rumors." Suck it, mate. That's all I have to say. We had the good tea and we were right. So we'll actually dive into the signings and everything over the international break. But yeah, he's moving on. I just wanted to just do that because I thought it would be fun. One down, one to go. One more Lawwell to get out the door. Happy days. So, Shane, we'll wrap the pod up here. You got a final thought or anything?
Yeah. Music thought to end the pod on for me. So I love my British music, and I'm a massive fan of Oasis and the Stone Roses. So you can imagine my giddy joy when I found out a little while ago Liam Gallagher was doing an album with John Squire from the Stone Roses, and that came out this week. And it is a brilliant album. It's Liam Gallagher's sneering vocals, his voice sounding as cool as ever, and John Squire's on guitar with those bluesy and almost psychedelic riffs and guitar work that everyone loves. And it's a wonderful collab album between two absolute icons and two personal artists that I love. So I'm really enjoying it, and I'd recommend everybody check it out.
All right. And my final thought is going to be pretty simple. So before I do that, just thanks everyone for tuning in for episode 300 again of the Celtic Down Under podcast. If you haven't done so, hit the subscribe button on YouTube, hit the notification bell, help us keep growing the channel. Tell your friends about it. It's nice to see some new names starting to pop up in the live chat as well. Guys like Typhoon, haven't seen you around in there a while. Strange Love, it's been good that you've been back in recent episodes as well. Smell the Glove, same deal. So Patrick McLaughlin, just random. Scotty's Jason's one we haven't seen in a while. So a few new names just starting to pop up in there, which is good to see. So thanks to everyone who appreciate that. My final thought, really simple. We all know it. And say it after me. John Beaton is an orange. Over to you. Hail, hail.
How?